One.
Good afternoon, St. Louis, Missouri, on a hot Saturday afternoon. Chicago, Illinois, Denver, Colorado, Dallas, Texas, Indianapolis, Indiana, London, England, Standing Rock, North Dakota, Topeka, Kansas, Richmond, Mississippi, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Charlotte, North Carolina, Jefferson City, Missouri, Greenville, North Carolina, Memphis, Tennessee, Baltimore, Maryland, and Kansas, Missouri, home of the Negro League Baseball Museum. You need to visit that. We're going to launch with the Missouri Baptist Congress for June the 12th, 2021. My name is Aaron Post, your host and creator, along with Reverend Lyles. How you doing, Rev?
Fine.
Sound fine? How's the family?
They fine. Everybody fine. Thank God for waking us up this morning.
You got to turn that microphone on, Scott.
Oh, that's the microphone that's in the studio, Mr. Brother R.
Okay, well, we want to hear your voice, so we know Scott's here and anybody's here. And we are broadcasting live on Ferguson USA, HotDogRadio.com from beautiful Ferguson, Missouri. And the St. Mark's Family Trade Complex Mayor Tommy Pearson Sr. is the pastor. He's also the mayor of Belltown Neighbors. And next week, we're happy to say we'll be taking the show on the road. Going to Belltown Neighbors, where we have a whole all-star cast of our congressmen there, first black Supreme Court Justice, and a whole lot of hosts of other people today. A whole lot of people will be attending there. And there's going to be a Juneteenth festival, and so we're going to celebrate Juneteenth. We'll be able to run the country we do also. But right now, without further ado, prayer with Elder Lyles, pastor of the Walnut Park Bible Chapel Church, is located at 5547 Linden Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63120. That's Elder Lyles, the pastor of the Walnut Bible Chapel Church, located in North St. Louis at 63120 and 5547 Linden Avenue. And that's the pastor, our great friend, Elder Lyles, at the Walnut Park Bible Chapel Church at 5547 Linden Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63120. Did I do it right, Rev? 3 times. Did I do it right?
Right.
Okay, come on, Rev. Okay. Well, I know you got a good prayer for us, Rev. I know the God's working with you. What you got for us?
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we continue to thank you for a wonderful gospel. How that Christ died for our sin, was buried, and rose again. By continue believing to the saving of the soul, continues to make heaven your home before you sleep and after you sleep. Heavenly Father, we thank you we're already seated in heavenly places in Christ Jesus. And Heavenly Father, we thank you that our name is already written in the book of life. Those people don't know your name is already written in the book of life when you believe the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You have passed from death unto life before you sleep and after you sleep. Heavenly Father, we just ask you to bless all the sick in the universe. And Heavenly Father, we know you're in control of everything, and we know that you can do everything but fail. And we're looking for you to continue to carry us on in Jesus' most precious name. Amen.
thank you for that prayer, and especially these times, we're going through a whole lot, around us, and God has kind of given you the right words at the right timing. We hope everybody, was touched by that. So, Rev, okay, took a break there in between scriptures. So, what you got for this week?
Yeah, like I told everybody, it's only one chapter, it's only one message. And this is the main part of this one message, is Isaiah 53. The vicarious sacrifice of Christ, Jehovah's servant, what he did on the cross, dying for your sin, was buried and rose again. You passed from death unto life. He did the dying. You don't have to die. He's the resurrection. Look what it says. It says, who has believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He had no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrow and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he had borne our griefs and carried our sorrow. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgression. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord had laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shears is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment. You know that song say, he never said enough mumbling word. He didn't say it. That the proof is right there. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And who should declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked, and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He had put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. He shall see of the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied. By his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the small with the strong, because he had poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors. And he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressor. Thank God for Jesus Christ. That's who we talk about. This is the only message. And that's what he did for you on the cross of Calvary over 2,021 years ago. So that's it.
Well, Rev, I have to tell you, that is a read there is a mouthful. He touched on so many things that's going on right now in 2021, on June 12, 2021. All around us, we see people going on their own, people doing their own thing, and they will put it, people being told you need get vaccinated. I ain't going to get vaccinated. I'm going to spend a man we're in the hospital right now. Young people, she refuse to do it, in our 20s, okay, and it's been said, look out for your neighbors, well, the people right now not doing that. look out for your children. Some people don't want to do that. I mean, it's like a craziness, Rev, you know, and you just touch on all that right in that scripture.
Yep.
And so it's nothing new, okay? It's been told a long time ago. This is what we're going to deal with, you know, and how he buried our sin on the cross, you know, and now, more than ever, we should be all conscious of that, Rev. You know that?
Amen.
Because this is really, you know, some times now where, and unfortunately, the worst is not over yet. It's because people going back to work, okay, or some going back to work. Or, well, you know, there's a lot of places, especially here in Missouri, I would say, that we got a lot of hotspots, you know, in our rural areas. And unfortunately, you know, what happens is, unfortunately, I said unfortunately, as our sports teams open up the quarters next week, a lot of these people from the rural areas will be coming to the baseball games.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they got to see the passes. And so again, sometimes, you know, you can be, rush to get back to normal. But then that initial take its course, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, Aaron, the only thing that's normal is you being born again and being the Lord Jesus Christ. That's why he said the world gonna wax worse and worse. He was talking about the people in the world is waxing worse and worse. It's people that's going around here shooting people, cutting people. It's people around here that's acting like men and men being trying to be women, two daddies for a child. That's wickedness. That's an abomination against God. And they talking about they done made themselves an agenda by the law. God, that's why God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. They don't remember Sodom and Gomorrah. But you better, because you trying to bring it again. God is going to doom Satan. Satan going to be doomed. It's Satan that's making the people do this, influencing them, keeping them confused and chaos. What it look like the kids talking to two same agenda, and they supposed to be their parent, and they started off with a man, male, and female. Huh? Not male, and not female, but male and female. God forbid you do. That's why he established marriage, male and female, not no two men marrying each other. That's wickedness. Y'all get married all you want, and you can't touch me because God is protecting me. And I don't fear you. I fear God. I don't fear man.
But real, one of the things, okay, that you just touched on there is never in life has two women produced a child, nor has two men produced a child. So that's something that God said right now. There's a combination that works for us to grow our society. And also something you said there, okay, about the 2021 and from 2021 years ago, you talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. Most people even not aware what it meant, what happened, and to show the thing with that, education, of what black have done in the history has been all worked out the history books. You and I was in college and high school and even grade school. We did not know how slightest idea about things what was going on in our own black community, and they said you don't know your history. You're doomed to fail going forward because you understand to learn from the lessons that you learned from the past. And that's why your scripture you just read there touches on all of that. I mean, it just takes it right home to the point. I mean, you can't get no clearer than that. Like I say, he was humble as a lamb.
And God told me to get angry, but sin not. Look out!
Yeah, that's why I say you got to have some discipline about yourself, how you're going to deal with something, and how, and that's the thing, okay, that we now think that we don't have any discipline, about, we can do this, okay, or we can change the law. This we just mean is people, that were illegal 5 years ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago. Well, somebody made a new law, and that's not only illegal. Well, life ain't just like that, There are certain things that need to remain the same, okay, when they were created by God years ago. I mean, he was very forthwith, okay, about the things that we could do and things we shouldn't do. I think that's called the Ten Commandments, wasn't it, right, Red?
Yep.
and that just was a few of the many teachers, okay, but that's something that has stirred up over time, and even 2021, okay, we still refer to that, you know, as the threshold, the foundation of what we do in our country, you know, around the and with us going through the changes in our own country here. As it being seen around the world, this is a good time for people. I talk about this later, I'm not in prayer. But right now, I just don't think I know right now there's a lot going on in your life, a lot going on in all of our lives, you know.
Yes, it is.
That's to say that, you know, we all get together as a family. And I will say one thing, okay, that our young people, you have to understand, even as a kid, that you were real and so was you, Scott. We didn't always listen what our parents say, okay, and tell us to do something. But one thing we almost guaranteed to do was what they do, and that's what they do. And that's one of the things that's been teaching less over time. You know, all kids watch their parents. You know, and I always, you know, if we were kids and if they don't do something, and what I like to the lesson that we all learned at some point was, don't touch that hot, that hot stove or electric socket until you get it, okay, you don't forget it.
Hey, Ira, they never told us nothing wrong.
No, but at the time
they always told us to do what's right.
And you know something, at that time we didn't understand it, but they had experienced what we had to go through because we just thought they would tell us not to do something. They had all the fun. They said, I know I said that to my aunt, you know, and they said, don't do this. And I said, you had a good time in your life, you know, so why are you trying to see me don't have a good time in my life?
I'm so thankful for how my parents treated me. I thank them. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because of what they taught me.
Well, I think Scott now most of the chairman, that right, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because our parents, you know, got us here, and at the time, you know, one of the commercials I liked, okay, on my Spectrum hands out here, about the guy in his dish, okay, he says, who knew? He said, I never knew. Well, we never knew what God had planned for us.
Hey, Ira, did you hear about the man that was survived from a whale swallowing him?
Enlighten us, Red. What happened?
It was on the news. Said the man was talking about that he was out there capturing lobsters, and he got swallowed up by the whale, and he survived it. I guess the whale coughed him out like they did Jonah.
Well, Rev, you know, we always say, okay, history has a way of repeating itself, but see, that's the thing, okay. People have to tell those stories, okay, you know, explain them, you know, tell what happened to them. You know, Rev, one of the best things for you as a pastor, and the other know this more than most of us, okay, so should I also, you know, it's a thing in our country, especially in our country, that we don't tell the stories, okay, of our lives, of our experiences, like most people do. We don't write it down. We don't share it, okay? But those things that people share like that, let us know that God is still on the throne.
Amen.
When people head into doubt, okay, but things are taking place every day, okay, that's biblical, for lack of a better description. You know, and it's not going to change. You know what I mean? But we just have to hear somebody tell us. But that right there goes back to a jump. People out the where that was in the whale, belly of the whale. We know who that was.
Yeah, for 3 days and 3 nights.
3 nights. Yes, because he was going against what God told him to do. And he had a stiff neck, a hard neck, what you want to call it, a refuse to obey.
Hey, Ira, that's talking about the gospel, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and that was explaining what was going to take place, that Jesus was going down to hell, to take all them that been to hell, to free them from hell, and bring them with him. That's why we absent from the body and present with the Lord.
Well, Rev, you know, one thing that you kind of aware in the whale story, down to Christ raising from the grave, it was 3 days. Those 3 days are very important numbers in the Bible, okay, for people, you know, going through things being resurrected, when I came, in the belly of the whale, he just knew he was there. And there was no ifs and ands about that, okay? He just knew he was going in. See, and he had a revelation that, hey, God gave me the mission to do, and I got to go take care of that business.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we got to take care of our business here. I want to thank you again for a very, 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 very inspiring message. Especially biblical passages. Now, what chapter was that, Rev, you just read from?
Isaiah 53.
You got to see it 2 more times, Rev.
Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53. I'll make it 4. Isaiah 53. And then that make it complete. God the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and me.
Okay, Rev, come on now, Rev. Okay, well, Rev, we gonna thank you for that, okay? And again, very inspiring, okay? And we hope that you use it, and as we go into the week end, listen to Ferguson USA, HotTalkRadio.com. Lunch with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. My name is Fowlkes, that's Rev, and that's Scott. And we'll be right back. Stop to get out of here. We're in the 90s. We've been the 90s for the last couple of days, and we're getting down. It is officially summer is here. Swimming pools open here in St. Louis and around the country. But one thing we want to ask you to do is continue to pray for all the people who have been affected, by COVID-19, the coronavirus, and also, the need for prayer needs to continue to go up. Because although we are saying that this is behind us, This is not only here, you know what I'm saying? And also, please get vaccinated. One of the things that our president had asked us to do is get to 7% back to Grateful Independence Day. So again, if you got a friend, a loved one, or someone who has apprehensions, we here at the station all have been vaccinated. We can tell you, I got the Johnson, I got the Moderna, I don't know what real got, but we all here now talking to you on the air. So I know a lot of people around that I know who all got it. And the only shot that they had, they hit the soonest in the arm for a couple of days. But beyond that, please, don't take a chance, because you're going around people who are not aware, because now they have the mask mandate that they can relax. But I personally, when I go out in public and go places, matter of fact, I had a meeting here in St. Louis and down in the Gilmore Loop this past week, and I was quite surprised that everyone that passed by this so much there, sitting outside, that they had a mask on, going into the stores, walking down the street, and I was saying, wow, this is, and I was encouraged to have my mask on. Of course, I feel like I'm fit out of place, but because keep in mind, over 33.4 million people have been affected by this virus, and over 600,000 people have passed away. Those are some serious figures. And Rev just said in his scripture a few minutes ago with his prayer that the life is changing as we go along. And people trying to say, well, what's going to happen after the pandemic? Well, as we come out of the pandemic, we still got a ways to go. And one thing that I have said, and I can share with everyone else, that we're going into a whole new world. So trying to figure out what I'm going to do a month from now, I can make plans, but everything is changing. Everything is changing. Like here in Missouri, we're looking at a lot of people, can't go out. A lot of restaurants and stuff are still trying to restock. Well, what they did tell everyone that this was like a shock, okay? Because normally, when you were shutting down these restaurants and businesses and stuff, they did that gradually. But when they started, opening back up, boom, so there was not well planned, in my opinion. But also, one thing that we continue to pray for is that not only our family and our friends, but also President Biden, Joe Biden and his wife Jill Biden, as they are traveling to the G7 summit, that the president has donated over 500 million COVID-19 vaccines to underserved nations, like in South America, in Africa, different countries around the world. Even like China has a serious problem with COVID-19. Over there, is only 2% of their population, much less than 5%, because those figures change depending on how they release them. But the one thing that comes to my mind that we all should be cognizant of is that very shortly we're going to be having the 2020 Olympics in 2021. And that's going to take place in Tokyo, Japan. And right now, the figures I just gave you being less than 5%, and from around the world, coming to another country, it's going to be with those numbers. Now, keep in mind, this is where business come into what goes on here. A lot of money has been spent by Japan to build all these facilities. To change all these skills around. And right now, they're having problems getting enough volunteers who live in Tokyo itself, okay, in the surrounding areas, to be volunteers. One of the things we put these events on, volunteers is the backbone of most things, and you got some of this size. And a lot of the main athletes, who are expected to go, who would agree to go, like including LeBron James and some of the other superstars in basketball, so they passed up this time. And in fact, LeBron James, by the way, I like to compliment him on winning a second Emmy, for his company. But that is a production also, going to the playoffs, but he's an entrepreneur and a businessman. that is kind of thriving, doing other things in the community, and for the community as well we can. So, but most important, a lot of the top people will not be going to the Olympics, but we do know that, like here in St. Louis, in a couple weeks from now, we're going to have gymnastics. Yes, that means that great gymnasts will be coming to St. Louis. Okay. So for the trials to see who actually go to that. That's why I said a whole lot of them put into motion, not only Cobb County and NBC, the rights that they have to broadcast this and the commercials have been already sold. So I mean, so this is a huge thing. So I'm not doing the plan. They may, and I use the word they may, do what the NBA did last year, create a bubble in that area and keep people within a certain area, okay? And also, with even more, I guess different, I should say, is that right now there's no plan to have anybody in the stands while this is going on. So again, in the 2021 Olympics will take place, would be a whole lot different. Also, as the president is traveling, he's giving the vaccine to those nations. So the European Union, they're also going to donate over 1 billion vaccine. Because right now, for tourists to go places, for people to travel around the world, and also do business, they have to get the vaccination to them. So again, we're happy that we are here right now. We lead in the pack, what the president has done, and also what the former president, trying to fast track the companies produce the vaccine. You got to get credit due. So right now we got the Moderna, we got the Pfizer and the Johnson. But unfortunately, Johnson is running into some problems that they have in Baltimore, Maryland, in the country. And over 60 million vaccines had to be rejected. But found out recently that maybe they're going to need 50 million. But that's just a whole lot of vaccines to go to be rejected. And it's not so much that's about the vaccine, it's the way that it's being handled in this particular plant in Baltimore, Maryland. So again, Dr. Johnson, there's nothing said about vaccine having a problem. It's the manufacturers are having a problem. Because they do these things, they don't make them all in one spot. They have factories all around the country, okay? And so this is how one of the factory facilities in Baltimore is the one that has a problem. So please continue the vaccines, and that's a good thing that they're available to you. Now, almost anywhere you want to go, they're in your communities. Matter of fact, next week we're going to a Juneteenth fair here in Belltown, Naples, which is around the corner from the station. And I guarantee you they're going to have vaccination stations all around the place. And face masks. One thing that we will donate, the Mexican Congress will donate to the people at the Juneteenth Festival. All the face masks they need, for those who need face masks, we'll make sure they get all they want. We will make sure that they're for those who want to be cautious. And also, please keep President Joe Biden and Jill Biden, the president travel. They in London, England, which is hosting the G-Summit, which is a gathering of the top 7 nations in the world. And they get together and they have a meeting, and the meetings, I should say, we're getting one-on-one FaceTime, with a person, talk about what is going on in their countries. And I am happy to say that looking at the statistics that's being put out on different polls among nations around the world, that our standing in the world has greatly increased. Now, one of the things, even Mr. Putin had to say that with Joe Biden, he feels that he's more comfortable working with him, knowing that he understands how the process works, and how that going forward, that he knows there's going to be, a conversation, about the countries, about what our needs are, and what we're speaking for the world. That everyone now is supporting President Biden and all the European Union and all those countries in that are supporting what he's doing. And also that, by the way, this was a very, very, very special occasion that for the first time in a while, Queen Elizabeth II, she welcomed all the world leaders along with Prince Philip, and their families when they're at the G7, which made this a very special occasion. Because people are aware, there was a time that the Queen of England, there are a lot of countries around the world right now, other than just in the UK, that she reigned over. You know, countries like Canada, like the United States, we fought for our freedom. So again, having a queen there, and she saw, I mean, this is her 13th president that she had met from our country. And but seeing her there after the death of her husband, okay, we're all very encouraged, you know, to see, I should say, Prince Charles, not Prince Philip. I take that back. You know, her husband was Prince Philip, but also I'm saying correctly that Prince Charles was there, you know, and there along with his family, and everyone was very encouraged. See her being in good spirits, and also as the president leaves the G7, this is something long talked about, that he will be sitting down face to face with President Vladimir Putin from Russia, president, because a lot of the things that taken place in the last couple of years, where with cyber attacks, you know, taking place with malware, and we had most recently the oil pipeline shut down. We had a meat packer plant shut down. We have several businesses that have been shut down, smaller businesses. Okay, some cities have been done. And what has happened for the first time in history, when they were able to catch some of the money before the FBI was, I should say, and they call it callback, which means they got some of the money back. So right now the FBI is developing ways how they can, you know, fight the cyber attacks on our systems, and almost most systems are vulnerable. Just recently, another car company had somebody had a problem, and also there's always, you know, these things out there. I tell people, be cautious when you're on the internet, when you're searching. If you're not familiar with something, don't click on it, because then you can take your computer down or create a whole lot of other problems that you don't need. And also right now, this is President Joe Biden's first official trip out of the country since this election, and swearing in back in January. And also we said, a lot of this, since we had our last conversation together, a lot is taking place, you know, first of all, in Washington, D.C., there continues to be a fight. See, one of the things that our country does, and we're famous for, is when anything takes place, even right now, there's an investigation going on now to find out exactly how coronavirus got to this country. They're looking at the factory, the research lab in Wuhan, where it's originated from, and I will tell you that it will be coming out what took place and how actually everyone and how it was there. There's been talked earlier on with Carlton, okay, but these rumors will be replaced by facts. And that's the same thing that's going to take place right now if people in the Republicans in the Senate voted down a bill, the bipartisan bill that was able to cross both parties of the land, to find out exactly what happened on January 6th. The whole world, including myself, and most people from this lesson today, saw what was going on. And we were amazed that in our country, and I will say this, never in our life had the Confederate flag been walked around inside our capital of our government. And a lot of people, were hurt, died in some cases. And I will say this, the FBI will find out who, what, why. And right now, we had one Republican congressman was saying that it was a walk in the park. Then he had a video showing him fighting for his life. And see, that's one of the things that in 2021, videos from our cameras, not only are these cameras catching people being, committing crimes, they're also showing things that have taken place in Congress, at the Capitol, on that fateful January the 6th. There's a police officers, around the country right now being rounded up. Most recently, the police officer out of Chicago, who just was identified. He lost his job. But people weren't thinking. And also right now, there's 6 other been picked up with ties to local gun rights groups. So right now, this is over 500 people right now have been identified, and that number is going to continue to grow. So right now, in this investigation, it's going to bring out a whole lot of stuff that we all want to know what took place, and we should know. But this is our capital, this is our country, and anytime somebody attacks them, we need to know who did it, and just for history reasons. Like I was telling Rev earlier, okay, you gotta know your history, otherwise you repeat it over and over again. And so this is something that's going to be come out to the light. The people who are involved, with manufacturing ready for it, and also speaking of Congress, Senator Joe Manchin and a couple others, another young lady. These 2 people right now are refusing to support the Democratic Party needs. I mean, I'm talking about there are certain bills. One is the one that's going to deal with all of these states around the country right now, as we had the most successful fraudulent election in our history. Over 60 lawsuits were filed. Even going to the Supreme Court, there was nothing found of no discrepancies, nothing going on that was wrong. But the good part about all that, okay, just yesterday, you hadn't heard about it, Mary Garland, our Attorney General, has launched has already hired a whole lot of new lawyers, and they're going to look at how these laws are being broken around the country by each one of these states. And I can assure you they will be tested. Matter of fact, the one that's out of Arizona was getting a lot of attention. Well, they already got a letter from the Attorney General's office telling them, okay, to respond. And so that's the first shot across your bow, and after that, the federal government will step in. And so right now, all of these states, okay, including Missouri, who are passing these laws, okay, that's taking away our voting rights for the people of black, the people of color. All this is gonna come to a and how to do this. So again, as we look at this now, just sit back, and also some very good news, encouraging news for the black community. The first federal district judge was approved by the Senate this past week. There was a judge, Julian Alexander Neal, he's from New Jersey, and also more from this important that is this was the first, and also they approved the first Muslim judge in our United States history. That was Sahid, I'm going to mess his name up, I'm going to Cornish, Quraishi. And that is groundbreaking. That is groundbreaking. And also, we need to say that a lot's taking place in our states, in our countries, and one of the things that I have to bring out here, Missouri always makes the news for the wrong thing. Our governor, our legislator, I should say, passed a bill that he seemed unsigned. It makes no sense. It's the first in the whole country. You're going to hear more about this. A law that bans state police from enforcement of federal gun laws. Does that make any sense? Hell no. Okay, how you going to tell them? The federal laws are federal laws. There's state, municipal, municipal government, state government, federal government. And you cannot overstep all of those. And also, one of the things around the country, including in Missouri, I've been in Missouri this week, one of the poorest states in the country. And also, I was in contact with Kansas City in Missouri here. And as I told before, people are trying to get jobs right now. There's a job position. The point about it is now, the minimum wage may not be put in effect, but companies right now are raising the minimum wage and they're paying bonuses. It's a good thing. And also here in St. Louis County, St. Louis, Missouri, carjacking, murders continue to increase, but that's a bad thing. And also, we did a survey in Missouri, and Missouri still is on the NAACP's do not travel list because of harassment of black drivers in our state. The number went down this year because nobody was traveling. So, but anyway, having said that, we're so happy to have a returning guest. Matter of fact, when she here the first time, she with her mother, Miss Michelle Daniels, living underground. But today, I'm so happy to say we got her daughter. Not only have her daughter, she's about a guest, and also her daughter, by the way, was a doctor in Topeka, and one of the oldest black medical schools in the country. And I'm happy to say that we have.
Brother Ira, are you there?
Dr. Evans, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's a relaxation.
So, how do you a medical student relax? How do you do that?
Well, I'm in New York, just visiting one of my friends here
Okay.
for a couple of days, and then I'll be right back at it.
Yeah, I remember I was in school up at Wilberforce. We looked for the weekend. We were just out there town.
Yeah.
We couldn't hardly wait for the weekend, because we were right away. Everybody was gone someplace. Even Cincinnati was safe. I'm glad to know that you're doing that. And first of all, how are you doing in school? How things going?
Well, I just took a really big shelf exam for internal medicine, me and my colleagues. So I think it's going well so far. We'll see how it continues to go. But I mean, it's going as planned.
Okay, well, right now, how did the COVID-19 affect studies in your college? How did that affect your classes, in your preparation for being a doctor?
It definitely changed a lot. So initially, we were having some classes virtually instead of in person. But it's a very big struggle because, we have a lot of anatomy labs, and, we need anatomy. So we kind of have to be with a cadaver, to learn the body. So it was challenging to try and learn virtually to the point that was the first thing that they reintegrated back into the curriculum. As soon as we were able to get vaccinated, they were immediately like, okay, you guys go back in the lab, vaccinated, come on back in the lab. But, it was a little more relaxing the past year because a lot of things were virtual, so it wasn't so hectic. But I'm definitely glad to be.
Rushing the class, in between classes, doing stuff at home, in your dorm, you could actually sit back, like you say, and just do it in a relaxing environment, and not be distracted.
Yeah, it's definitely better. But the only thing is, some things are better to learn in a community style because you can just discuss through with your colleagues, and they can look at what you're looking at, and that type of learning environment was a little hindered during the pandemic.
So, I'm quite sure, as a matter of fact, I'm quite sure the teachers also were somewhat stressed also, trying to, create, be creative, I should say, like a better description, where they could just teach, I tell people, this pandemic, in this plain life, no matter where you were, I could not imagine what you had to go through to get to work with your doctor. Like you had to have certain things, this conversation that you would have amongst your students. One of the things I learned a long time ago, patient discretion means $1,000 to $1,000 what you want to say. When you look at somebody and see how they responding to something, and that's why I got the person now. But I could imagine that was the first thing that was like I want to say it's a travesty, but you worked around it, okay? So that was they had to be creative.
Yeah, and most professors are obviously older men and women, and just even adjust to the new technology to be virtual was a big struggle. They didn't understand really Zoom and how to put all the people on mute and how to just operate it, period. So it was a big technological gap, for the first few months. there were a lot of technical difficulties that were just hindering just off of that alone. So it wasn't even about even getting to the barrier of the sign or, just like regular things like that. But I mean, eventually they figured it out, and then, yeah, it does make a big difference. Like 70% of communication is body language. So just even know when something's like super important, you can't really like gauge it, on a virtual platform. But I mean, we did the best we could. So I mean, hopefully everything's just working out. I'm definitely glad to be like in the hospitals now, like with other doctors and stuff now.
The environment for what you're doing is almost 90% of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, everything is about human interaction. Doctors, like, you gotta touch people, you gotta be able to feel if your throat's swollen, does it hurt when I touch here, versus even like visiting a patient on virtual. We were doing that too, like having a lot of visits on telemedicine and practicing telemedicine in our simulation lab. So our students will have like a simulated patient, but the patient will be on virtual. So we'll be asking them like, okay, what hurts and all this. It's just a big difference than just touching them or, just feeling if their throat is warm versus asking them, so it's a big difference.
In fact, one of the things that you mentioned there was telemedicine. Just this past week, okay, normally I would go in for my, I'm doing a broken neck hernia, just, pain management. And so this week I had my pain management doctor, we get a telemedicine. And she just, the question that you just asked, how your body feels. How you just,
right.
And most times we do, with a video chat, so to speak, in that way. But then that's right now, this pandemic, okay, it's kind of, you guys are a whole new course, I would say, that you learn how to deal with telemedicine.
Yeah, it was a whole new, basically a new class, like, because now that's actually a thing that some practices are thinking about keeping in place even after COVID, because in some instances it can be a little more efficient than a patient having to come in. And people are more likely sometimes to make those appointments than they would be if they had to come in. A lot of people miss appointments, delay appointments, versus if they could just call in, they'll still be more likely to make the appointment. So, I mean, yeah, it's a new branch that I think is going to stick around for a little bit. Definitely not as much as it has been during COVID. I think it's going to stay around for 2 years at least, because there was some benefits to it.
Well, that's why I say, and I told people, and I said this and continue to say, COVID-19, that kind of purged the way we look at things in a more simplistic way, and it forced us to get more into our people that's around us. We talk to people more than we did in the past, because we want to see how people are doing, just talk about that. And so that talking that's good for the soul, am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have that human connection. But it's just a debate, I guess, of what is real human connection. Seeing somebody or talking to them virtually or touching them, like different things that connect to us. So I guess we're just going to have to gauge, like, what level of connection we want to keep and what's beneficial and what's real, that type of thing. The virtual definitely brings out some extended human connection as far as communication, but it's lesser of a human connection as far as human touch and expression and just seeing body language.
Yeah. Well, that's why you go to the doctor. The doctor look at me, analyze you in every move. Okay,
yeah.
You got this.
And they teach us in school. They teach you like when you have a patient and they come in, the visit starts from the moment you walk in the door. It's not about what you asked the patient and what the patient told you. It's about, are they feeling with their jacket? Do they have a nervous tick? Do they, it's all like you're literally reading the patient from top to bottom, because somebody might not tell you. There's certain things we can pick up on that you're not going to even know that you have. You know what I mean? Somebody might not even know that they have a nervous tick, or they're displaying signs of withdrawal, or you don't know what's going on, but you can kind of see it. So the visit is more so it's a total picture. So sometimes the doctor doesn't even have to ask you third question. Some people think like, oh, my doctor didn't ask me, these 3 questions, but they looked at you and they got the answers themselves, didn't have to ask you. So it's definitely different.
I'm somewhat remiss here, okay? I should have asked you to tell us a little bit about the college that you go to. It's one of the oldest black medical schools I guess in the world, but I'll be honest with you. Tell us a little bit about the college you go to and the history of it.
Mr. Iyer, would you mind speaking louder, please?
Okay, could you tell a little bit about the college that you go to, Harris College, and where it's located, and what's dedicated to doctors, what is meant to the black community?
Meharry Medical College is based in Nashville, Tennessee, and currently we graduate the most black doctors every year. So it's a HBCU medical school, one of only a few that exists. But yeah, it was founded in 1987, and basically the mission has just been to serve the underserved, meaning that we go out to give care to people that are typically overlooked. Communities that are overlooked, groups, the homeless, minorities, those are our targeted populations that we go out and we seek to give care to. Or we do research on those communities so that they have, the same availability, vaccination information or new drug enhancement research, the same equity as other groups that have more driven research in those areas. So that's pretty much a little bit of the background of Meharry. Our president is Dr. Hildreth. I don't know if anybody has seen him, but he does a lot of work with COVID right now because he's an infectious disease specialist. So it just so happens that our president specializes in infectious disease. So he has been like the leader for Nashville's information right now as far as how to get vaccinated. And the Meharry Medical College right now actually has a drive-in vaccination center where people can come and get tested for COVID-19 free of charge. You just kind of drive up, you get tested, we give you your results in like 24 to 48 hours right in the black community in Nashville. So we did a lot of work, a lot of testing in Tennessee for minorities just so that, we can have those equivalent numbers. So that was a unique thing as far as there was no other COVID site for testing centered in a black community other than Meharry Medical College, and that was a very intentional thing done by our president. And it was student run, so students kind of ran it alongside some of the doctors and our leaders at Meharry. So that's our mission, and that's like all that we, we're about kind of.
Now also, okay, I love this about you. You brought a friend along with you, okay? And I don't want to mispronounce her name. Why don't you introduce her for us?
Okay, well, this is my colleague, is Dr. Nana Adefrempong. That's how you pronounce his name. Nana Adefrempong. If she's on, she can go ahead and tell you guys. Yeah.
Nana, go ahead, please. Yes.
Hi.
Welcome to the program, first of all. We thank you so much, okay, for joining us today. Because one of the things, both young, we are so proud of what you're doing. Because one thing we out there doing as a shortage of black doctors, period. And are you researchers, about what's going on. And I'm very encouraged to hear that you're president of the college, okay, as a specialist, in what's going on with COVID right now. I don't know if you guys are very, very, skilled and then knowledge and taught the basis of what's going on. I am so proud to have you join our show. So having said that, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind. First of all, you're from a different, are you calling from California today, or where are you located?
Well, I'm calling from Nashville, but I'm from California.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm actually Ghanaian American, first generation. Born and raised in California, and like Tanisha said, we're colleagues, so we actually just started our 3rd year of medical school. So my big thing is to give back to the underserved community. That's pretty much why I decided to go to medical school. There's just a lot of brain drain when it comes to underserved communities, and I think it's I've been blessed to be fortunate enough to like get an education and continue going to school. So I think that it's only right that I do something where I'm able to give back in a very big way. So.
Well, I'm excited, okay, what you just said, that you're blessed, and we all are blessed, okay, to have Mahara College continue doing what it has done for over years. So what has been the most challenging thing for you during this COVID-19, review in your classes in adjusting to the new normal, as they call it?
So I think for us, COVID hit at a time where we had a pretty good handle on like our study groups, our friend groups. And so I think that we were very fortunate to have like a really good team amongst us. I know for like the class below us, that was a bit of a struggle because they didn't necessarily make that connection because they just went and they were online. And so they didn't really get to meet each other and really form like a very strong support group. But a challenge I would say that we faced was something similar to what Tanisha was saying. Like, we have very limited experience with like anatomy. COVID hit within our first year of med school, so anatomy was very truncated. So that was tough. Like, you have to be able to see the body. It's a lot different than, reading it in a book or seeing it online or anything like that. So we have our surgery rotation next, and so I think that's going to be, at least for me, a pretty big shock when I'm seeing the human body, open. It's just been over a year since I've seen that. So, but I'm up for the challenge, and I think that we can definitely get through it and overcome it. So I'm remaining hopeful.
Doctor, let me ask you a question, okay? One of the things that we, including myself, most people who watch all these different NCSI shows or different shows, okay, where they have, where they got, and Dr. You can also chime in here, okay? Where we watch all these different programs where they have the bodies, cut open and stuff, and they digging in the body and stuff, How close that's a reality? There's just a figment of our imagination that can be created.
Well, I think I'm like a huge fan of Grey's Anatomy. I haven't seen NCIS, but I do know a lot of it, like looking back, is it could be a bit unrealistic.
Right.
A little dramatized. I mean, I think like the general sense of like what they're doing can be like fairly accurate in a sense, but it's very dramatized, and it's definitely meant to cause like arouse within the viewer. So, but it's fun. But I wouldn't take notes on it and think like, this is how you do a certain procedure.
Right. So, I know it just amazes me. One of the things that all these crime shows do, they come into and they touch the person on their neck. What are they doing then? And they said, hey, they're dead or they're alive. Well, what are they doing when they do that?
When they touch they're checking for their pulse. They're checking for a pulse. Like, yeah, that's pretty realistic as far as you want to check for a pulse. You want to start CPR immediately, in an emergency situation if the person's not breathing or they're unconscious. I think most of the shows are pretty realistic in the sense that if that situation happens, that's how it would kind of go. I think it's just unrealistic in the sense that happens like every day. Like, every show is like this crazy, like something crazy happens every single show. But in real life, maybe you might encounter that like, once a week, once a month, once a year, depending on the situation. It's just not like that every single day. day in and day out.
Okay, so let me pose a question to you, okay? Here in St. Louis, like most places, okay, we got mass shootings, secretly and being shot all the time. Now, so if a person's on the crime scene or watching something like this, what would you suggest they do? Should they go to the body? I know they should call 911 right away. That much I do to get an ambulance there. Okay, but should they try to touch a person and see if that's something everybody should do, or they just step back and let the profession come in?
Well, okay, so it definitely depends on the situation. So one thing that people often do that they shouldn't do is if you witness like a car wreck or some kind of trauma, you shouldn't move the body. You shouldn't move the person unless the person is in immediate danger, like the car is going to blow up or, they need to get away from a fire, then you will move the person. But other than that, you're actually going to do more harm than good by moving that person. Some people panic and they grab the person, are you okay? And they break someone's bones or neck. You can make everything so much worse than it already is, because something could just be mildly fractured or displaced, and then you can really just cause them to have a life-altering injury. So usually in that situation, people always should just check their neck, see if they have a pulse, see if they're breathing okay. If they have a pulse and they are breathing, just kind of call 911 and then wait for the emergency responders to get there, and they can properly move the person how they're supposed to be moved. Now, if the person is not breathing, then you might need to use them and start CPR. But other than that, if it's a situation and they're breathing just fine, just call 911 and let the emergency responders handle the situation. Now, if you witness a gunshot, the easy thing to remember that they always tell you is A, B, C. A, B, C. So A is airway. You want to make sure the person's breathing. The airway is clear, nothing's blocked. B is breathing. So make sure they're good, they can breathe. Their chest is rising up and down. And then C is circulation. So you want to make sure that they're not profusely bleeding out. If you witness a gunshot, you want to stop the bleeding. Put pressure on it. Get a shirt or something, put pressure doing whatever you can do to stop the bleeding is going to be good, and just wait for emergency responders. Don't try to be amazing in surgery, do anything extra. Just put pressure on the bleeding wherever it's bleeding, and try to keep as much blood loss from happening, and then wait for the emergency responders. And then always call for help.
Yes, 911 right away.
Or just people that are around. If you can't do everything. So let's say they're bleeding, and then call for somebody else to say, can you check and see if they're breathing? And you'll stop the bleeding. Don't try to stop the bleeding and see if they're breathing okay. You don't have to do everything. Ask other people to do other things if you can.
Okay, well, let me ask another question, okay? You see, a lot of times they're saying keep your eyes open. What does that do? What does that do?
That's just to keep the person awake and alert so that they don't lose consciousness. Yeah, try to talk to them, try to keep them awake and alert so that basically their brain is still in control of their body. Because when you're not awake, another system kicks in to take over, and that system is not as strong as the system when you're awake. So, you want to keep them alert and awake until they can get stabilized, and then their parasympathetic can kick in and do the rest of the work.
Okay. That's valuable information to know, okay? Because right now, we're seeing a lot of accidents in St. Louis, around the country. I'm quite sure I know in California, also I know in New York where you are, that when carjacking takes place, most times they're going to tear the car up. And then they got an accident, and sometimes they in the car themselves or the person with them is in great danger because of somebody's stupidity. So right now, so let me ask another question, okay? Since you guys, have been, into your third year here, what has been the most challenging, I go around the horn here, for you making an adjustment, okay? As you see that when you go back to your community, what are the greatest benefits that you're going to take back, from the school, when you go home?
All right, go ahead. So yeah, I think I've honestly this is my first experience just being in the South and being in this type of environment that really
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It's the South. It's a whole new world in compared to California.
It is. And I think that for me, I mean, I'm Ghanaian and I've been in Ghana many times. And so that was really my focus, at least before. But I think being here, I'm realizing just how much that I can make a difference within America. And I think that it just really shows, at least for me, I've really seen just how much agency that we have as like student doctors and like future physicians, where we can really make a difference that's just so much bigger than us. And I think that it's just really showed me just like what's important and how I can go about tackling certain issues within certain communities. That's something that I wasn't really aware of before. I knew that like I knew the idea of like healthcare disparities, but I think it's not until you're actually working in it and actually have a sense of like, you know, medicine as like, okay, this is exactly what's going on and this is how I feel like I can best tackle it to the best of my ability. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, that was a very powerful answer, because it didn't occur to me that we're coming from California, to Nashville is a transition all by itself. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I went to Wilberforce from St. Louis, and I got there. I got on campus. So this was some years ago. I said, "This is not what I thought it was." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get this thing I need to go through there. A reality check like a better description.
Right. Yeah. It's an eye opener. It's a very, very big difference.
When you said, well, guess what? This is my home right now. I need to do an adjustment real quick.
Right, yeah, it's been my home for the past 2 years, and will be for the next 2 at least.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, this is home now.
Exactly, this is home.
Well, Dr. Anna, what you just saying questions to you?
Oh, okay. So, well, for me, you know, I'm all about psychiatry. So, yeah, what I intend to take back is a unique approach. Like, Mahari kind of teaches how to handle, you know, a certain population, because we do serve, you know, minorities and the underserved and different things of that nature. So I think that training is just a unique training, because I don't really see, I mean, we do see people of all backgrounds, races, genders, but primarily our patients are minorities. So I think that just that experience of just working with minorities, getting comfortable, getting to know the unique problems that minorities face in a healthcare setting is just the main thing that I'm going to take from the school. Because most likely when I leave this school, you know, and I go and work in a hospital, it's not going to be like a black, you know, resident. You know, yeah, that you just don't get that kind of exposure. It's definitely like a unique type of exposure at Mahari versus, you know, a typical, most residencies are in, you know, institutions, and most institutions, of course, are primarily white institutions. So most of our patient population is going to be either diverse or primarily white. So that's the main thing that I'll take from my education at Mahari, is what it looks like to serve minorities. You know, what kinds of things that I'll approach my patients with that differently than I wouldn't approach it maybe a white patient with, or just making sure I cover more basics. You know, some things that can just be overlooked or not thought about. Like, for instance, a lot of ranges for like white blood cells are different for minorities than for whites. individual. So a lot of the ranges that they kind of give us as doctors, like, oh, if you're doing well, you're between 5 and 7, or if you're doing well, you're between 6 and 8 for this, lipid panel or whatever. It's actually a different scale for Black people, but they don't really teach you that. It's not like really in the book, But we have a lot of patients that will come in and they'll be like, oh, you have low white blood cells, and talking to a doctor, I'm like, what's going on with this? And they're like, oh, it's actually normal for Black people to have low white blood cells. They're actually not low. We just tend to have lower than most white people, but it just doesn't look that way because medicine was formatted for a white individual. So it's just like things like that I feel like, since I've seen it so much, because I have seen so many African American patients, that it's like it's almost normal. The normal for me is like what's normal for a minority patient than a typical American patient.
Well, how does that help you guys transition, into like most hospitals are white, so for the most part, so and then a disadvantage. I guess it's an advantage, because you're going to have to be more cognizant, of what you're dealing with, and the average person, who are used to dealing with white patients, so to speak, who in turn will have to be more cognizant, than they get with a Black person. Am I right on that description?
Could you repeat that?
I said, how would you adjust going into a white environment? When you in the hospital there that you'd be going to, these patients you're dealing with. And I asked you, so I said that's probably an advantage for you to have, the Black body, I should say. And also, it would also be an advantage, for a white doctor to be at a disadvantage to learn the Black body. Is that an accurate description?
Yes, I think it's definitely an advantage, because medicine was made already for, like I said, the majority of the country. That's what the format is. So everybody kind of learns the main format, for, typical average person. And so I think all institutions do things differently. So it's not to say like all institutions for Black people do it this way and all institutions for Black people do it that way. All institutions have their own approach to medicine, their own approach to patient care. So whatever institution I go to, I have to learn their format, however they think is best, whatever tests they think are best, we have to do that format. But I have this tradition that I know a different approach, to a different type of patient, So that's how I feel like it will work out, I guess.
Now, you may call this a stupid question, but this is I'm going to ask doctors or even some students since I was in my first doctor. But they teach you guys how to write prescription. Most doctors write a prescription. You can't hardly read right.
No, they don't. That's why we don't know how to write. But a lot of
especially the fact nowadays, they're not teaching cursive in school no more. So how? So that's even more unique to see the doctor's writing, so to speak.
So actually, a lot of prescriptions are just online. So I know, like when you go
to people who I don't know, go to the doctor and give you a prescription. I know most times now they won't give them to you now. They say we're going to send it to your pharmacist for you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's to avoid that whole barrier. So they'll send it through the computer to the pharmacist. And then even sometimes when they do write it down, it's still in the computer. So they might get the slip, like a doctor's slip, and it'll have the doctor's name, address, and your name on it. Mm-hmm. And that's enough for them to still just look up what's in the computer versus trying to read what's on there. But I mean, some people do still give paper prescriptions. And I have no idea how the pharmacist, that's actually a gift of pharmacists, of reading doctors' handwriting, because sometimes I don't have any idea how they gauge what's on that paper, but for some reason they get it right. So I don't know how they read it, because I don't know.
Yeah, I know exactly. I secretaries have told me over the years I write like a doctor, okay? But I look at my writing in there, and I'm nowhere close. Okay. Man, I had one doctor one day years ago, and the pharmacist was saying, "Oh my God, this is Doctor So and So. His handwriting is crazy." And he was known for his handwriting.
So they call them. Sometimes
Right.
I've seen that. They'll just call them and say, "Hey, what was this you wrote down?"
But you said a pharmacist does get it right, so that's a good one about it.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if you guys, how many more years that you got to be at your school before you get into private practice? Until you get out, you got your 1 year residency first, and that's how it works. You go to the hospital for 1 year.
Oh no. So we're in like the hospital now, but it's just rotations. And then we'll have like a year and a half or 2 years right now before we'll be graduates. And then we'll be MDs, you'll be doctors at that point. But we have to do a residency that's either 3 to 6 years, depending on what you decide to specialize in. So if you're going to be like a surgeon, you have to do like a 6-year residency or more. If you're going to be like a family doctor or an internal medicine doctor, which is just like typical, like the hospital TV show kind of doctor, I guess, as a hospitalist. Those residencies are only like 3 years. So it just depends on how like specialized of a doctor you want to be. You'll do a residency for that long. And then after you do your residency, that's when you can do like private practice or whatever you want to do after that. But the residency, the whole time you're practicing as a doctor, but you're under like a head doctor called an attending. So you're still under an attending. People kind of like look over what you're doing for like a few years after you graduate. So they don't let you just graduate and like go out here and just write for, just do whatever. You do like a few years of residency after that, and you can do whatever you want to do.
Well, I know you guys are excited about what you're doing, and we're excited also. So going forward, okay, since you guys got a couple more years to, figure out what you want to do, but either one of you guys figure out what it is you want to do or how you want to do it yet?
I have some ideas. Yeah, I think as time goes on, I'm kind of leaning towards either dermatology or plastic surgery, but I'm still remaining open. But I think those two have like my interest right now, with the highest interest. Anesthesia is creeping in there as well.
Okay. I guess coming from California, you have a whole lot more options, than most doctors would have, I would imagine.
I mean, you would think, but I think there's just a huge deficit in anyway, in like all types of specialties. So I think regardless of what we choose, we'll be okay no matter where we go.
But Dr. Adams?
As for me, yes, I'm interested in psychiatry primarily, and then also emergency medicine. So those are the two that I'm kind of debating between. They do have a new branch called family psychiatry, FamPsych, which is basically a double board certified position where you can do family medicine and you can do psychiatry. So I'm thinking about doing that. And then also internal psych. So everything is going to involve psych, but I'm just debating if I want to do like 2 types of specialties in one, where I can do like a traditional like family doctor and I can be a psychiatrist if I just want to be like a psychiatrist.
Well, I think right now, what the COVID-19 pandemic has done, it's created a whole lot more patients for you. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one takeaway that I hear the most. Okay, is that people have not dealt with loneliness well. They have not adjusted to being, how people, are talking nowadays, are not, doing stuff, more, electronically, so to speak. It's just, and that's caused all races and also caused all generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Definitely making psychiatry a little bit more attractive. And then also, like we were talking about earlier, with those visits being virtual, that's one specialty where it does make it definitely still makes a difference to be in person versus virtual, but with psychiatry, it's
definitely in person.
It's a little more convenient, and a little less of a deficit to be virtual in psychiatry than to be in any other specialty.
Well,
so actually,
in psychiatry, people always sit me on the couch.
Yeah. But they can lay down on their couch and put the camera on it versus like needing to touch them.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not as big of a deficit to be virtual for a psych visit than like a, fever, headache, nausea, psych visit.
Well, let me ask you a question, okay? If you could come up with 4 or 5 pointers, okay, for a person who hasn't done telemedicine yet or hasn't done telemedicine yet, how should they prepare, themselves for telemedicine? What would be your suggestion? You want to go first?
Prepare themselves as a patient?
Yes, but actually, the doctor's going to call me, so, okay, well, I'm going to many camps, okay? First what happened is, okay, this is the date, and then you got a 9 o'clock appointment with the doctor. About 10 minutes to 9, I would imagine. Normally I would get a call saying, are you ready for Dr. That's the hotel right now, okay, at 9 o'clock. Then they ask you want to do a video or you just want to do the phone link. And you say, okay, I'm about to do video, okay. What should I be prepared to answer by doctor, in advance, if I could see that.
Okay, I see what you're asking. Okay, so I would recommend, like, with the new wave of telemedicine, it's kind of putting a shared responsibility more so on the, doctor and the patient and then the whole experience. So it's really important for you to monitor yourself, like, at home and have those numbers ready for your doctor when you come to that virtual visit. So, for instance, if you have hypertension, like, keeping those logs of your blood pressure, writing down, momentarily or sporadically checking your blood pressure, writing it down, checking it before the visit, or even during the visit, you can be prepared to check it. So you can tell your doctor, what those numbers look like. If you have diabetes, same thing, check your glucose, write it down, check whatever you can check that they would check at the clinic. If you could check it at home and have those numbers ready, that would be, extremely helpful, because the whole point of a visit is to make sure that we're managing your care appropriately and the things that we put in place are going well. So it's hard to have a visit with some people and they have no way of checking their blood pressure. They don't know if they've been hypertensive, if they've been hyperglycemic or hypoglycemic, or they have no kind of like log of their weight.
That was a mouthful.
Oh, and like her sugar, like if you have diabetes and you don't know your sugar level,
okay,
and I can't tell if the insulin I prescribe you is good enough for you because you don't know your sugar, you don't have any way of checking your sugar, and we're virtual, so now I can't check your sugar. So just having those kind of like simple numbers, that would be like the best thing I would say, like for the patient to do ahead of time before that visit, is get a way to be able to check yourself and tell your doctor, hey, my sugar is high. Hey, my blood pressure is still high. I'm taking my medication regularly, or even just knowing what you're taking.
Okay, Dr. Adams.
No, that was Dr. Adams. I'm Dr. Adams.
Okay. Yeah, she just really okay. But next time we're going to do the studio, we're going to have pictures of you right now. This is going to be a return really.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, that's your turn.
Do you mind repeating the question for me?
Okay, well, if a person is preparing the patient themselves, and they're preparing for a teleconference, what can the patient do themselves to enhance getting the most out of their visit with themselves? What, for instance, like Dr. Allen just said, one, you get your numbers, can, and get blood, whatever. So the question is, how can you best help your doctor get the most out of your visit on telemarketing? Not telemarketing, telemedicine.
Yeah. So I know, like, at least for me, when I've had telemedicine visits, a big thing, like Tanisha said earlier, was making sure you have your vitals. And that's something that I didn't know myself either. So I showed up to my appointment and I'm like, I don't have any of my vitals. And that's like a big thing that they really need, because they're not able to do that, obviously, in a telemedicine setting. I also think, just like any other visit, like making sure you have all of your complaints ready, making sure you, one other thing you can do too is, I know you can also call the doctor's office and ask, like, hey, is there anything, like, I'm coming in for X, Y, and Z. Let's say I'm coming in for, a follow-up on my high blood pressure. So, that you could call the doctor's office, and, if you kind of either don't remember what the doctor expected to do from the last visit, or if you just want to make sure if there's anything else that you can do. A big thing that I know you can do is you can actually call the office to see if there's, like, any other preparations that you can do. So, like, something the doctor might want is maybe a list of the different blood pressures you've taken yourself over the past, few months or weeks, whenever your last previous visit was. So making sure you have that ready. But I think, honestly, it's, making sure you're in a quiet setting, making sure you have, like, stable internet. That's important. Making sure, obviously, you have a functioning camera. So making sure your technology is equipped. And I know that can be harder for some people than others. Making sure you're in a quiet place, in a private place as well, because obviously the information you'll be talking about, you don't want it to be, heard by the masses. So making sure, like, you're in a very quiet setting, quiet and private setting.
Let me ask you a question, okay? One of the things here in this area, and that's probably in most cities nowadays, you have urgent care facilities, and I know with my doctor, with my primary, what we'll do is this is something that always surprised me. In the old days, the doctors go through a whole lot of procedures, okay, to find out something now, but they say you get the blood test, and the blood test tells so much about a person. And so whenever you have a private, when you're family, with urgent care visit before your telemedicine, and that's something you recommend.
Sorry, can you say that for me again?
Okay, well, right now there's a lot of urgent care facilities. For most hospitals, they have those out in the communities. And so I'm saying, if a person had one of those and the doctor's on staff in one of those hospitals, would that be a good thing to do prior to the telemedicine visit with your primary?
I think it depends on what you need to see a doctor for. So I know urgent cares are for something that's a little more, like, urgent, more important. It's more of a necessity to actually physically see a doctor and get treatment. But, I mean, if it's just your average follow-up visit with a doctor, I don't think it's necessary. So it really just depends on exactly your reasons as to why you need to see a doctor, why you need that access. It's definitely a good alternative if you need something done, quickly. So I kind of treat it as, let's say we're pre-COVID and telemedicine wasn't really, in place as it is now. I mean, there are certain things that you would just go to your regular primary care doctor for, and there are other things that you were just like, hey, I need to go to the urgent care. So I would really treat it the same way.
And I guess that brings to another question. Urgent care versus going to the emergency room. In most cases, people in the emergency room, you got to wait a long time. urgent care seem to have a shorter wait. So, what would be the criteria that would first make that decision? Which one they should go to?
Yeah, so it's just really with the wording of it. Like, emergency room, it should be for emergencies. Like, if I don't get care now, I might not make it to the next hour, the next 2 hours, the next day.
Yes.
An urgent, center, and that includes, like car wreck, gunshot wound. That's what the emergency room is really, really for. And I think that's a great question because I think a lot of people do show up in the emergency room that really kind of do need to be in the urgent care, or they need to, get a follow-up appointment. And that's typically what happens. You'll just, they'll treat them something that maybe it's significant, maybe it's not, and then they'll usually just schedule them to see their primary care physician. That's usually how a lot of situations do go in the emergency room. So if it's something that's bothersome, like you're having burning with urination, or you had blood when you peed this morning and it was really crazy, and but if it's not actually like you're about to pass out or something, you should just go to the urgent care.
Okay.
If it's something that seems like it's like very, very worrisome, but you're not about to actually physically pass out or physically die from it, then you just go to the urgent care, and they can treat you faster, and they can treat you more thoroughly and alongside your primary care physician. But if it's like I said, if you're losing the active, a large amount of blood, or you're having chest pain is something that you should, go to the emergency room typically, because chest pain could lead to a heart attack or something more significant. But other than that, I think most other patients should go to the urgent care and be treated there. And if you need to see something more significant after you go to the urgent care, they'll send you to the emergency room.
Right.
Like, hey, actually, you need fluids now. We're going to send you to the emergency room. They're not going to just say, oh, you went to the wrong place. So it's fine to just, if you can, just go to the urgent care.
Yeah, okay. I think that's the thing that a lot of people grapple with. Which one should I do? Okay. Now right now we just enjoying Chuck DeBow. He's our national vice president, national chief of commerce. And Chuck, we have a very unique show today. We have two students at Mahara Medical College in Nashville, and so they're here, and they've been giving us a whole lot of information about how the black body can be treated and how the information we should need in general. And the last question I just asked them was, first to go to the urgent care versus emergency room. And I also asked them something about doctors writing also the right prescription, how you can read the whole things. So you guys, welcome to see around, but check over here with updates. So check come on, what you got to jump in there if you can.
Boy, that's a lot. Let's focus in on the thing that really stood out was what I think is really relevant was urgent care versus emergency room. And were we just generally approaching that consideration? Because I bet that rings with everybody. Hey, hello everybody, too. Let me say that. Reb, I hope you're here today.
How you doing?
I'm thinking about you.
What's up, Chuck?
I can't even enter the room without recognizing your honorable presence.
How you doing, Chuck?
Specifically, I'm good. I'm fantastic. But I was just on the phone with somebody a little while ago that was talking about urgent care, and because they were there, they were in urgent care. They're like trying to excuse themselves from a meeting. They were in urgent care, and urgent care has been the realization that some people rather go to urgent care than emergency. And a lot of it also has to do with your insurance. The prices are different.
Well, doctors, what are your thoughts on that? She said the question I said before, doctors normally don't care when getting into whether your insurance covers different medicine, different tests and stuff. All right, doctors?
Yeah. Yeah. I think also, too, like, out of urgent care, you'll most likely come across like a mid-level care provider. So like either a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner.
Yeah, the doctors aren't in urgent care, are they? I mean, they have some doctors there, but you get what you walk up on.
Right. I don't think they're as filled with doctors. I mean, you'll get PAs and NPs in emergency rooms as well, but they'll definitely use a doctor in an emergency room.
Is that Cheyenne talking, or is it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Chuck. What we're having is that a young show that he was on with Miss Michelle Daniels from Everything Underground, and her daughter was on the phone with us the last time from Harry Medical College in Nashville. And so we invited her back, to come in to be on her own. And she brought one of her colleagues with her, Dr. Nana. I'm not going to try and go ahead, Nana, please. I pronounce your last name.
Oh, Ajay from Pond.
Okay, and we have Dr. Adams on the phone. And so we go.
Hello, and welcome. I'm remiss to just come and jump out in the middle of a conversation and not sure exactly what perspective we're discussing.
Okay, so let me phrase this. Okay, so Chuck, if you've been in the business world and you're constantly, on the phone, on the internet, as you see when in the medical field, the new doctors coming out, you see any opportunity that people don't aware of that they may be able to, then we can talk about and enlighten them with.
Yes, I do. In that, first, let me say that I'm a little taken aback by what was it? Doctors don't make the money that they used to. Like when we were kids growing up, the most affluent people in a neighborhood usually had something, the doctors and the lawyers and the mortician owners. It was a pillar of our culture, of our community, of our society. And a lot of let's say out of my 10 closest friends, let's say 5 of them dads were doctors. And of those 5, maybe 3 of them, of the kids, went on and became doctors as well. And through the process of medical school, going into their interns and all the progression towards becoming a doctor, it's really challenging. And you've got to now, you really, to reach your potential, I think you have to have some element of entrepreneurial cognizance or understanding. So, for example, I'll give you another example. I know one friend, his wife's a podiatrist. They work on your feet. And she does extremely well because she got board certified. She also opened a clinic, but she employs other doctors. But she's owning the overall business, and the doctors essentially are in and out of the operations as employees of the clinic. And so you have another doctor that this is a guy who has owned real estate, and his wife's a skin specialist. And they went out and bought buildings that they set up almost like a turnkey medical practice. And so you could just be getting out of med school, and you got a lot of overhead to get you into your own practice, as whether you sign up for all the various challenges in it. But they are having you've probably seen these medical professional buildings where one area is dentist, or one area is this type of doctor, another area is another type, or maybe they're gynecologists or obstetricians or heart specialists or brain. They really, somebody is putting those things together to allow for doctors to have some lifeline in getting into the business, because and certainly the doctors themselves speak up, but your liability insurance has got to be like in the roof now. There's a lot of issues going on, here that it affects the business of being a doctor that comes along with insurance and I mean, like when my brother was a high-ranking officer in the Navy, he was in town working at a naval installation in some meetings, and he had a heart incident. And when the ambulance picked him up, fortunately, he was meeting his wife for lunch when all this happened. But they were getting ready to take him to which hotel based on, I said hotel, the hospital, based on, was he insured? Are you insured? What kind of insurance you got? And I mean, he's out, but the wife's talking, says, no. She's waving her card, and she's a private consultant at a corporation, and she had insurance. And whatever the military's type insurance was, they could take him to like general hospital where he could be gone, and where he ended up was the same place they take the presidents, to the trauma centers. You know, where Reagan went, all these guys, they go over there. Cheney got his heart thing done, his work over there. But anyway, it was life-saving difference of what happened and when and where. And everything is relating to that. And so I'm barely speaking from a layman's perspective, from the outside looking in. You can't imagine challenges that you must go through, not only to get educated, not only to get licensed, but to actually get out and get in practice and get a job. You know, I know some doctors that are doing extremely well, and I know some that aren't necessarily excited about it.
So, Dr. again, so what are your thoughts on that as you go forward? When you have primarily work in a hospital or institution or not prescription, I think Dr. Adams is somebody who maybe let's say for his own practice at some point along with going into psychology, so to speak. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with what he's saying. I've always looked at it that way. Anyways, I mean, some people still think that a doctor's salary is great. I mean, it is. It's above, average, but I feel like the benefit of being a doctor and getting a salary is that you have the collateral to be an entrepreneur, to be, have businesses and different things of that nature. And that's where you're really going to make money. If you have the entrepreneurial mindset, if you're able to have practices or even just brand yourself and, create some type of health-related venture. But it is a struggle to make a significant amount of money as a physician in this country the way that it's set up now, because a lot of people aren't going into private practice because of the way that insurance is made. Like, it's not really... it's very stressful already to have a private practice because, all the overhead, all the insurance, all the, legalities, they fall on that one person, and you're already worried about, treating your patients and, keeping your doors open. So it's just a double headache at this point. It's not as common because, people have HMOs, they have all these, groups where it's just easier to go and get a job and make a decent salary. Because sometimes people with private practices, they're not even cutting what somebody with a job might have if they haven't gotten off the ground yet. So it is an investment in years, and we've already invested so many years in the grind. You got 12 years of schooling, and then you got, your residency that's going to be 3 to 6 years, and then, you got to come out. Now you got to grind again to be private practice. So sometimes it's like a person might not want to do that sacrifice that it takes to kind of get your business off the ground, and they might want to go and just work for somebody, and I don't blame them. But, yeah, I mean, it is a different kind of thing. And that's why for medicine, and anybody that's interested in medicine, they shouldn't do it for any other reason but the fact that they love medicine and they love doing this every day. It's not a situation that's so lucrative that you should do medicine to make money anymore. You should just be a businessman if you're all about money. Medicine is not the place for people that want to make money. Medicine is the place for people that have a heart for medicine. That's it.
Dr. Nana?
Yeah, I completely agree with her 100%. I think that we invest so much time. I mean, right now, we're not working, right? So we're already losing that time to study medicine, to train in medicine. I mean, once we start residency, I mean, we're making between 40 to 60K a year. So we're not making much out of school either. Meanwhile, our debt is accumulating, and interest is accruing. And so I do think, and school is very, very expensive. And so we definitely do have to be business-minded. But like she was saying, like, you're definitely doing it for the love of medicine, because you know, like, once you come out of it, you're not making much money. But you also know you do have loans to pay, and, you know, you're going to have a family to feed. And so I do think it's important to have that entrepreneurial mindset to make sure that, you know, as much as you've sacrificed and you have a passion for medicine and to giving back, you know, I do think that we do need to make sure that we're okay ourselves, because so much of this process is so selfless that you almost forget to take care of yourself. And so I think for us to better give back to the community, we have to make sure we're okay. So I do think I wish they would teach us more about entrepreneurship in med school, but I do think that might have to be something that we have to learn along the way.
Hey, Chuck, let me ask you a question, okay? And you know,
Ira, let me just say this. In no way am I being disparagingly imbued. I'm totally in support of your disposition and embracing it. You both sound like you're, you know, relatively young, like the debt just to get educated, and it should be a reward for it. So we'll circle back to, but you're talking to the entrepreneurial side of it. And we're not embracing you and your plight or your disposition to optimally, and this dialogue is helping to facilitate that. So, anyway, I'm sorry.
No, what I was about to say, okay, this may be an opportunity, okay, for the National Human Commerce to look at the college there and talk to someone, okay, about putting some type of class or some type of you know, seminars together, okay, for the people who want to go into business. Because it's
in a way, Ira, in a way we are, as particularly as we talked about embracing the HBCUs in particular, and how the, you know, what you just stated was that they don't teach entrepreneurs, but see, they don't have a class. They don't have a class on medical practitioner finance or something, because you're going to be hit with these bills. You're going to be hit with this insurance. Everybody that's coming through there has the same thing. And so now there is one group of folks that are kind of laying in wait for you, because they know you don't need this, and they know you got credit coming out the box, and they're going to load you one way or the other. So yes, I would welcome it and look forward to it. But even like right now, if we said that we took a mentoring protege kind of approach too, where established doctors can help you get going, and not that you have to sign on to quote unquote plantations where you just have a job, but like you're getting, you know, the same way the Chinese and the Indians and everybody else do. If you want a 7-Eleven or one of these Chinese convenience stores, they damn near stock it for you and hand you the keys, and then all you got to do is operate it properly in debt service. You know, the same could be true with being a dentist or having a medical office. But to see on the other side of it, our society has been programmed to where we may not be going to the doctor. We may not be seeing health care. I'm working with a lady who owns a business. She's from Colombia, South America. She's the #1 mental health clinic in Latin America, particularly in South America. I don't know how many locations she's got, but she sees the opportunity to talk to her. They want to bring it to America. And because they're able to go into the communities, and her target market is going to be English as a second language type market. So people that are speaking Spanish. But President Biden put attention on, let's say, children that are traumatized by the process of coming across the border. whether they did it legally, illegally, or separated from their parents, and they're talking about mental health there. And it may not be the exact thing of what we're talking about here with medical practitioners, but it is an area that they're getting ready to funnel a ton of money into it. And so here comes the entrepreneurs who are capitalists and saying, well, why don't I just hire some doctors to do this? You know, and you end up with another job where the real true expert and practitioner is saying, well, you really need to do it like this or do it a different way, not so much from some businessman's opinion. And then they give you a cookie cutter and say, okay, here's your you can rent this office or you can do this with a funnel clients and patients in front of you. And somebody was smart enough to go get hooked up with the government or the county. And there's all these different variables. Well, the same thing may apply for COVID treatments or for fundamental exams, you know, all this kind of stuff. So, yes, Ira, we do need to have this dialogue and to look at support and embrace for even existing medical practitioners.
Hey, Ira, could I say something?
What are your thoughts about that?
Could I say something, Ira?
Sure, go ahead, man.
Ira, when they was talking about the word urgent care and emergency, it's no different. Both of them are the same. Because it's a life and death situation can develop from both of them.
So could we say that it's kind of a door that you enter and you go down? Yeah, it's urgent. I need it. It's emergency. I need it. But if you go urgent care, you get a different flavor than necessarily if you're going showing up in emergency. And that's maybe that people are learning that empirically from going through the process of it.
But right now, I want to stay narrowed in on what we're saying here. Doctor, what are your ideas about what Chuck just said about possibly creating some type of relationship? Let's say with your college that you're going to have some introductory to entrepreneurship as you come out of college. Dr. Nan, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. So I think that would be an amazing idea. I think a lot of us come into med school with the right intentions of giving back and serving in communities. But I think what comes with that is a paycheck. And so going into certain specialties, you know, a lot of underserved communities do need more primary care practitioners, and generally they don't get paid as much as a specialist. And so, you know, year by year, as you're taking out these loans to fund your education, you're realizing, well, if I'm going through the same amount of education as my colleague who's going to be a specialist and making, you know, sometimes like a few $100,000 more a year, I mean, the difference can be stark. It's going to be really difficult to sit here and just say, like, well, I think it's better if I do go into general practice because that will allow me to better serve the underserved community. Because now you have to sit here and think, well, maybe I should be specialized, but I have accrued all of this debt. So something definitely needs to be done. And I think that is a great way because you do find that a lot of us don't really come from a business background. So it's like, okay, well, now I do have this money. What do I do with it? How do I invest? What does that look like? You know, how can I make sure that I'm not working for every penny that I earn? You know, how can I really, you know, profit off of it? So yeah, I think that would be a great idea.
Okay, well, Dr. Nana, right now, Chuck, we got a couple minutes left here. We had a Zoom call yesterday, Chuck, with the Random Magazine Marketplace, where I got to put this out here right away, okay? We got 1,000 scholarships worth $5,000 a piece. You can't even check it right quick. Chuck, get that in right quick if you don't mind.
I almost need to explain it, but it's in the subject area, the subject matter of blockchain. And a blockchain is when you're doing not just digital financial transactions, you're dealing with data, digital data that's vital and needs to be protected. In some cases, it might be personal data like Social Security numbers or things involved with a financial transaction. And it goes through what they call the blockchain. And now all these institutions, whether they're financial or whether they're in healthcare, one of the ladies there was in healthcare and was conveying how the value and importance of understanding blockchain. Well, all these companies are going, having to adapt this blockchain. And just the same way it was maybe 5-10 years ago about cybersecurity, there's a shortage of people trained in blockchain administration. They have a little bit of information technology background, but it isn't necessarily as sophisticated as writing code and all that. Well, anyway, for a 6-week online class, you can get a certificate that says you're certified in blockchain, and there are companies there that entry-level job starts at $155,000. So the Blockchain Academy has contacted the National Black Chamber of Commerce and our Federation of Chambers, which includes the Missouri Black Chamber of Commerce, and wanted to offer basically selling curriculum or selling admission into their program so you can go for one of these jobs. And I just told them, I said, listen, it's a pandemic. These people don't have money. They need the job badly. And so that was over maybe 2 or 3 months ago. So yesterday he comes back and says, I got something for you now. I got 1,000 scholarships. I said, what? 1,000? That will put you through the certificate. I mean, through the online piece, and it's not technically challenging or academically. You don't have to worry about do you even have a GED or anything like that. But you can go spend 6 weeks online, get the thing, and here's a job, here's a number, and it's like who's who of the Fortune 100 that are hiring these people. And yeah, it's a timely thing, it's a window of opportunity, but that's one thing. And in respect to our medical professionals, that we need to continue the dialogue when we have the opportunity. There's innovation happening. All this online, people are having online, virtual doctor appointments now. So anyway, there's things happening, and it's global. Your education and your training is extremely valuable, and it's probably going to take teaming with society at large, along with you, to fully appreciate the value that you're there. We're going to talk more about blockchain education and what it means. It's much more than just talking about cryptocurrencies. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say that we'll try to we ever get the wall, but again, we have more time next week. Dr. Nana, we thank you for your time, and Dr. Elton dropped off. To Chuck, to Scott, and to Rhea, thank you again for joining us. We're much in commerce, and needless said, this is to be continued on both ends. Have a great weekend, Life's good, and be safe.
God bless.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Mike. Be safe.